friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Today we are going to talk about why you should stop reading your favorite books, which I bet is not a topic you were expecting to hear from me today, especially since for the last 5 years on BookTube, I've been gush-festing about all of my favorite books ad nauseum to everyone who will listen to me. I've discovered something this year, and it really put a lot of things in perspective for me and made me take a step back and really evaluate my reading habits. And I know I've been doing some videos about this topic kind of more generally in the last few months, but this one I think was really interesting and I wanted to get you guys' take on it. So buckle up, get ready to leave your comments because I want to know what you think about what I'm going to tell you. Now, if you guys are like me, my favorite books are comfort reads. They are books that I go back to over and over and over and over again. I love them. They are carried with me rent-free in my head, in my heart, and I love them so much. And all of us typically have a genre or two that we tend to dwell in more than the others. We always have our favorites, right? And for me, that is fantasy. I read fantasy like a crazy person, and I have read hundreds of fantasy books in the last 5 years since coming onto BookTube, and I have absolutely loved my time in this genre, and that is not something that I see changing at any point in the near future. Now, I do read genres outside of fantasy. I love some historical fiction. I read literary fiction every once in a while. I do love a good memoir. I kind of dabble sci-fi, obviously, which is, you know, just across the street from fantasy. But I don't really, I found my comfort zone, I guess is what I want to say, is the amount of reading that I've done over the last few years has really helped me narrow in on what I love to read. And especially within my favorite genre of fantasy, I have my favorite tropes, I have my favorite archetypes, I have my favorite story elements, and I really love to see those things in a story, and that makes it more likely that I'm going to end up loving the book. What I've started to notice in this last couple of years is I've hit a couple of moments of fantasy burnout. And at first I just thought, oh, it's fine. I'm in a reading slump. It's not a big deal. I'll get over it. I'll read a shorter book. I'll do whatever it is I normally do to get out of a reading slump. But the last few weeks I've really gone back and kind of dissected that fantasy burnout a little bit. I've gone back and looked at what specifically is making me burn out and how I'm feeling about fantasy and how did we get here? Okay, what I've discovered is this. When I hit a moment of fantasy burnout specifically, and it's not necessarily that I'm in a reading slump completely, I just feel like I want to take a step away from fantasy. It's usually because I notice that every new book I go into within the fantasy genre, I've kind of got like a bad attitude sounds kind of reductive, but essentially I go into it and I already feel like I don't feel like I'm in the mood. I don't feel like I'm being engaged by the story. And most of the time, that's not the story's fault. When I'm in burnout specifically, it's oftentimes a book that I might really enjoy if I had come to it at a different point. I have been embedded, like buried, like in a barrow 30 feet under the ground in fantasy for so long, it's kind of oozing out my pores. And that's great, except for I've noticed some negatives to that. One of which contributes to the fantasy burnout side of things, is that things have become very predictable for me in fantasy. I've said this in multiple live streams and multiple videos that it is really hard for a fantasy author to really surprise me anymore, and I get really excited when they do. And is that somewhat due to the fact that within any specific genre, there are going to be the tried and true tropes, the things that authors do over and over and over again because it works and because the readers love it? Absolutely. And also, I feel like I just go into it assuming I know this, I'm predicting what's going to happen. Oh, look, it's another this kind of trope. Oh, look, it's another this archetype. It starts to almost feel monotonous because I feel like I've seen it all before, which of course I haven't, because I haven't read every fantasy book out there, and there are going to be so many that surprise and delight me in the future. But it really kind of makes me want to take a step back and read something else, almost as a palate cleanser. This last year, I decided that I wanted to get into a new genre, and that was murder mystery and thriller. And I've read a few books in that genre now, and I really had a wake-up call when I was reading murder mystery and thriller, because I was looking at it as a contrast to fantasy, which is something that I know and love and have been immersed in for years. Whereas with murder mystery and thriller, I really haven't read anything. Like, I'm brand spanking new to this genre. And when I read my first murder mystery and thriller book last fall, I had the best time with it. And I realized that I didn't know what was coming. I don't know the tropes of this genre. I don't know what's normal for this genre. I haven't seen it all done before. I haven't seen 20 different trope iterations in different books. And it suddenly it almost made me giddy as I was reading this book. In the world of murder, mystery, and thriller, the book I was reading, to somebody who was very versed in that genre as much as I am in fantasy, might be like, yeah, it's really not that exciting. The author's doing this thing, and this thing. Seen it all before, been there, done that. I didn't have that. I don't have that background. And so suddenly this book felt like I was just in it. I was immersed. I didn't care where it was going. I didn't know all of the tropes. I wasn't 10 steps ahead thinking through what this book was going to be doing that I had seen before. It was this very new, almost not childlike experience, but as a mom with 3 young kids, I have the advantage of seeing my kids reading books for the first time and being brand new into these genres that I've loved for so long. And to see their wide-eyed wonder and excitement, my son, who is now 12, had a quote last year that it has just been stuck in the forefront of my brain since he said it, and that was, "Mom, I don't think I've read a book I didn't like." How many of us can say that at this point? And seeing him go into each new read with this completely open, wide-eyed joy is something that I've been almost a little jealous of. And so when I opened up that murder, mystery, and thriller, and I'd gotten halfway through the book and I had no idea where it was going or whether or not this was a well-done trope because I haven't read it before, I felt a little bit of what he was talking about. I felt a little bit of that just new discovery joy again with the book that I was reading. And now that I've read like 4 whole books in the murder, mystery, and thriller genre, like, I'm really an expert now, But I'm already starting to notice differences and okay, so this is a trope in murder, mystery, and thriller, and this is a trope, because I literally spend my days reading, reviewing, and looking deeply into the stories that I'm reading, which I love doing. But the power of going to a genre where I had no experience was so good for me, you guys. What a palate cleanse, honestly. What a palate cleanse. It was so good. And that's what I wanted to bring to you guys in this video. I want to encourage you guys to feel that joy of discovery again, whether it's an author you've never read before, a genre that's completely new to you, or something different. Go out there and find something unique and different to read, something that you don't have a lot of experience with, and bring that into your reading again. Because I discovered that after that murder, mystery, and thriller reading experience, I went back to fantasy feeling refreshed. I was excited. I was willing to just open a book and let it take me away. Like, I wasn't already bringing preconceived experience, the baggage of experience, if that makes sense, into the read as much. And that is now going to be a normal part of my reading habits going forward, is taking the time to step away from the genre that I know so incredibly well and deeply, to try something new, to give myself a different reading experience that kind of reintroduces the joy of discovery back into my reading, because I loved that experience. I have had such a blast going into murder, mystery, and thriller as a completely new genre. And it made me fall in love with fantasy all over again, because when I came back to fantasy again, I felt like my eyes were open a little bit more. I wasn't same old kind of brain mentality, which again wasn't the fault of the books I was reading. The best way I know how to explain it is I'd really kind of gotten bogged down in my own experience with the genre. And I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if that resonates with you. But it was a really good shift of mindset. It was such a good reconnect with the joy that comes in reading something new and watching my son just devour anything I put in front of him with no preconceived ideas. He just wants to be told a story, is something that I really wanted to rediscover. And I think with kind of switching up the genres, switching up something new, trying something completely different, it really helped me reconnect with the fun of reading and bring it back into the fantasy genre. It also helped me get out of what could have turned into a reading slump, and that's a piece of advice that I have for you guys is if you are really struggling and you just feel like nothing's really scratching that itch or helping you get excited about reading and you want to read and you don't want to just take a step back, which is also completely valid, try something completely different. Try something completely new. Walk into a secondhand bookstore and just grab something off the shelf. Even if it's awful, it might jog your brain out of that reading slump and give you something completely different to read and think about. So anyways, that's my thoughts for today, and I am so excited to continue reading murder mysteries and thrillers. I'm excited to dip into some different genres this year and have that really complement my fantasy reads for 2025, because obviously I'm not going anywhere. Fantasy is still my favorite genre and I'm not going to stop reading it, but I have really enjoyed bringing my fresh discovery feeling back into the genre that I love. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, having a blast of a time, regardless of what genre you're reading, and reading your next 5-star reads, and I'll see you in the next video.